Braising is considered a combination cooking technique. Why? Because we sear our meat first and then we add small amounts of liquid and cook low and slow. Traditionally in braising, we use more medium tender to tougher cuts of meat. This is because they're traditionally more high activity muscles, and that's going to give us more flavor. To begin, we pat dry our meat to remove some of the moisture. We do not wash our meat with vinegar or lime. To really bring in that Maillard reaction is when amino acids are in the presence of heat and they form different chemical reactions to give us that wonderful umami flavor. So we start by seasoning generously with salt and pepper. And if we have a very moist piece of meat, we can also use flour to absorb some of the moisture and give us a wonderful sear. The amount of fat that we add to our pan depends on the amount of marbling or fat in the meat. Apparatus that are generally used in braising are braising pans or crock pots or anything that's oven friendly that can pop into the oven. We want to start with a very hot pan. We don't want to move it too much because that will develop some moisture and interfere with our browning process. An important point to remember is no matter what the recipe says, we always want to season our meat. Why? Because this develops an additional level of flavor. We are browning all sides of this wonderful piece of meat today. An important point to note is that if you attempt to move the meat a little bit and it gives you some resistance, it's not ready to be turned yet. We want it to be easily released. And that will tell you that the Maillard reaction has fully developed. Pork shank has come into a beautiful color, and that tells us that all of the flavor development is there. So what I'm going to do now is remove my shank from my rondo. And as we're building layers, I'm going to add some mirepoix to my pan. It's important to note that I didn't rinse it. That's because I want all of that wonderful flavor that's developed at the bottom of the pan. I'm going to add some tomato paste. And this is called a pinçage, which is a French term that adds layers and flavors to our braise. It's going to give us color and it's going to give us a rich flavor. Sometimes you can even add flour to the pinçage. And what that does is it acts as a thickening agent so that your braising liquid is nice and thick when it comes out. Then we can add our pork shank back to our rondo, and we finished with stock. Sometimes you can even add wine. But to keep it simple, we're adding beef stock. Lastly, we're adding a bouquet garni, and this is going to provide a level of aromatics for our pork shank. One important characteristic of braising is that the liquid does not fully submerge the piece of meat or item that we're braising. Now we cover, and we place in the oven to cook low and slow. And that's braising.